Hey everybody, this is Rafe Kelch, and this is episode 38 of Have Not Seen This, a weekly in-depth look at a much-beloved movie, selected specifically by our guest, that they're a little surprised when they find out people have not seen. Hope everyone's having a good week out there. I know things continue on. The fight continues on, despite your social media pages perhaps returning back to something that resembles normal. The world is still a scary place. Be vigilant, keep going, and keep finding that escapism when you need it. Escapism was, of course, the big topic of last week's movie when we looked at Sharknado, and so that impacted our Friday inquiry, where we turned to social media and asked you your thoughts on a question inspired by the movie. And since Sharknado was kind of a stupid but fun movie, that was the Friday inquiry this past week, I asked, what's your favorite dumb but fun movie? And over on Twitter, where we can be found at Have Not Seen This, Chris Talent responded with The Adventures of Ford Fairlane, one of the dumbest movies I've ever seen, but I honestly never tire of watching it. And then over on Facebook, where we can be found at Have Not Seen This Podcast, got a lot of responses with some new faces in there as well. So welcome to those of you new to the show. Stuart Williams said, PCU, great cast that went on to do a lot. Just a fun movie. Luke Kunka said, off the top of my head, I'm going to shout out Will Ferrell's Land of the Lost. It's not anywhere close to a good movie, but the comedic beats are mostly hits, and it's a fun adventure. Adam Thomas said, Zombies. It's amazing. And if you listened to last week's episode, you know Zombies came up in the algorithm's recommendations, so I found that really hilarious that that's the movie that he suggested, or that he said for his dumb but fun movie. Price Ash said, The Fast franchise. Can't argue about the Fast and Furious movies being dumb, but they certainly are fun. James Rodriguez said, Shoot 'em up. Jeff Clark said, Killer Clowns from Outer Space, I think, falls into this category. I would absolutely agree with that. Chris Ecklund said, Zombie Strippers. Dion Nichols said Flash Gordon, which I have to laugh at because that's been a potential film for this show in the past. Christy Telch said Weekend at Bernie's, horrible movie, watched it recently for old time's sake, laughed like hell at all the quotes that my sister and I still use, but the movie was painful. Gabriel Milike said Scout's Guide to the Zombie Apocalypse, which I have to admit I haven't seen, and that's been on my list for a while. I need to get off my butt and watch that one. Amanda Branch said The Blood of Heroes. Jason Phillips said The Toxic Avenger. And Camille Remy said Swamp Thing. So lots of good movies in there, or I guess not good movies, but dumb but fun movies. Some of which I have to admit I've seen and enjoy, and some of which I have to admit I have not seen, so those will go on my list of have not seen this movies. A little self-promotion here. If you've been listening for a while, you know that one of my favorite episodes, just most entertaining guests that I've had so far, was Emily Slade from Why This Film. She talked with me about Labyrinth a couple of episodes ago and had me laughing harder than I've laughed in any of these conversations. Just absolutely loved talking film with Emily, and she invited me to come on her podcast, which is called Why This Film, and we talked about war games, and that episode went out this week. So I highly recommend you look up that episode of Why This Film podcast, where Emily and I talk about war games and how it made me feel, looking back at it through nostalgia, but also some relevance that it has in our current times. If you have not seen War Games, totally recommend it. Great flick, but also a great conversation. I love talking about movies with Emily, and I hope to get the chance to do some more of that in the future. So check that out. This week, we're turning our eyes to something a little more serious with 1984's Blood Simple, which, if you don't know the movie, it's the Coen Brothers' first film. So before they went on to do things like Fargo or The Big Lebowski, they started with this absolutely brilliant noir mystery, but it's not really a mystery because you know all the pieces. It's just fun watching the different characters kind of putting things together. This is a special episode to me, not only because it's our first Coen Brothers movie, but also because my guest is Chris Ecklund. And Chris is probably my oldest friend that I'm going to be able to get on the podcast. I have one other friend that I'd kind of hoped to get on, but has gone MIA for a while. Chris and I met when I was, 16, I think. He moved into my area, and we ended up going to school together and forming a really good friendship that lasted us through high school and beyond. And we haven't been in touch as much as one might like, but he graciously agreed to come on the podcast quite a while ago. And then it just took some time figuring out which movie he wanted to bring on the show, because he is a wealth of movie knowledge. As I do say in the episode, I credit him with introducing me to a lot of films that I hadn't been exposed to through my family. And we joke about it through him ripping off the plots. He and I played D&D and other role-playing games together, and he would rip off the plots of movies that he knew I hadn't seen and use those as the foundation for adventures that he'd run me through when we would just kind of do one-on-one stuff. Because we lived so close together, we could do one-on-one D&D stuff all the time, or Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, or Marvel superheroes, all kinds of different games that we played. And he would rip off these plots, and I wouldn't even know it because I hadn't seen the movie. And then somewhere down the line, I don't know if he'd make a mistake or he'd just finally kind of give in, and he'd show me the movie and I'd watch it and be like, you son of a bitch, you stole that. This awesome adventure and you just stole it. So a great history with Chris, and I love getting the chance to catch back up with him and have him on the podcast. And I love the fact that he picked Blood Simple, which is not a movie he introduced me to, but it could have been. It's right aligned with other movies that he did introduce me to. And so here we go. Great conversation about a fantastic movie. I highly recommend you check the movie and the episode out. Here we go with 1984's Blood Simple. So how you been, man?
Doing okay. Yourself?
Dude, surviving. I mean, it's been like a decade since we talked.
Yeah, it has. It's been a while. I'm glad you're doing well with all this, with the craziness going on right now.
Yeah, I'm making my way through it. I'm looking at making some changes in my life to try and because of this, but
right,
that's
right. Yeah, I think everybody is, to be really honest. I mean, I know we are. There's certain things that we're not doing anymore, and things that we've decided, hey, maybe this isn't such a bad idea. So,
yeah, it's crazy times. I mean, I told my son, that every generation has some event that will be history for them. Yeah. That I remember being young and seeing the Challenger explosion, and I remember being older and seeing the 9/11 incident, and that this is going to be that defining thing for his generation. It probably won't be the last one, but it'll be a key one.
Yeah, it's definitely, it's just so weird too, plagues and those sort of things just seem so, 1400s or 1800s. And, I didn't think I'd see one in my lifetime. So, yeah, a little surreal.
So do you still game?
Oh yeah, from time to time. Not anywhere near what used to, but we still get together occasionally.
Nice.
The COVID kind of brought that screeching to a halt. So
I'm sure.
Yeah, the guy we usually meet with was just like, yeah, no, guess what? We're not doing this. So that ended that.
Yeah, well, it has that impact, unfortunately.
He's not wrong. So I don't think that counts as going out for essentials.
No, and that's, I haven't gamed. Geez, I don't think I found a group after I stopped gaming with you guys. So it's been ages since I've gamed, but my girlfriend has a group, and obviously they're not meeting.
No, a lot of people are doing the VR gaming and the online gaming. I haven't figured out how to do all that yet. So I'm still doing tabletop.
Yeah, in theory, an older friend of mine is putting together a online group, but it's been since I would say mid-March that it's been a work in progress and nothing has happened. So I've kind of stopped holding my breath that that's actually going to come to fruition.
Yeah, we had some crazy ideas to try something on Discord, but it never worked out. So it is what it is. We'll just get back together when this is all over. And again, you're always welcome. So
no, thank you. I appreciate it. It's
yeah, absolutely.
Interestingly, my friend who's putting this together is now living in Lynchburg, and he and I met up a couple of months ago at a con, so that tells you pre-COVID. And I told him, that it's a long drive, but I've made it for gaming before, so it wouldn't be the first time.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, we were lucky. We got that GalaxyCon in like a couple of weeks before this all went nuts. So,
I think this was the same weekend as that, actually, because this was the con here in Roanoke.
Yeah. What's the one in Roanoke? Mysticon. Okay.
All right, so it's been a while since we've talked. I'm going to guess your movie interests haven't changed much in that time. So, what are the best movies you've seen recently?
Recently, because we've been watching a lot of TV shows. We've been doing the Netflix thing. We've been watching a lot of stuff there. We rented
Tiger King. I reserve the right to strangle you through the microphone.
No, not Tiger King. I watched about 20 minutes of Tiger King and went, nope. We did watch Dracula. We liked that. We watched The Irishman. That was really good. Knives Out was really good, surprisingly good.
Oh, it was great.
Yeah, fantastic film. I was actually really kind of stunned because I went into that going, I don't know. Sometimes they throw these big ensemble films together nowadays, and it's just a mess. But that one was fun. I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, I'm really glad that Rian Johnson wants to do more with that character and that Daniel Craig is on board for it, because I don't want a sequel to Knives Out, but I want to see that character on another story.
Yes, that would be awesome. And controversial statement, Rian Johnson should just keep making movies like Knives Out. Stay out of Star Wars, please.
So you fall on that side of things.
I do. The last one wasn't so bad, but I think they tried really hard to please everybody. If you liked Last Jedi, if you didn't like Last Jedi, I think they were like, we're going to give everybody a little something. But I was not a Last Jedi fan. No.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. So I credit you. I don't think we've ever had this conversation, but I credit you with introducing me to a lot of different movies when we were younger. I considered myself to be a movie person, even as a teenager. But when you and I met and started hanging out, the amount of different movies that you introduced me to, whether it was through the movie or through stealing the plot of the movie for a gaming session, was astounding. So this is kind of a hard question to ask you. I'm sure you have an answer for it, but the podcast is Have Not Seen This. So what are your have not seen this movies? What are movies you have not seen that people give you a hard time about?
Oh boy. I know I said online Mr. Smith Goes to Washington is a big one.
Okay.
It every once in a while I'll see it on TCM and I'll be like, oh yeah, I wanted to see that, and then for some reason it just doesn't happen. So that's probably the grail of one that I haven't seen that everybody's like, oh, they get that same kind of stunned look, like, oh, you've never seen that, and yeah, especially at work, they're like, well, you like all those old classics, what's wrong with that one? Nothing's wrong with it. I just haven't gotten around to watching it yet. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, and see, I knew, the popular answer to this question over the last few episodes are movies I knew you'd seen. So, the amount of people who've said Apocalypse Now.
Oh, no. Yeah.
Or the Godfather movies, which I know you've seen.
Many, many times. No, the ones I've seen, they're just ones that they either don't run very often or I've just not been exposed to. A lot of Chaplin. I haven't seen a lot of Chaplin, and it's always been on my list to go back and, check out some of the old classic Chaplin movies. What's another one that a lot of Woody Allen, like Annie Hall? I've never seen it.
Oh, really?
I have not.
I got you beat in one. Well, I got you beat in two because I've seen Mr. Smith too. So.
No, two. Yeah, there's a few out there that every once in a while, even guys at work who know, they come to me with all the movie questions. Are like, oh, what do you mean you haven't seen that? So it happens. But I really credit my parents with a lot of that because I mean, I wouldn't have known any of these movies if it wasn't for them, and they just exposed me to movie after movie after movie. Growing up, that was all it was like, hey, we're all going to get together and watch a movie every night, for years, and it was always a different movie. And some of them probably maybe they shouldn't have shown me when I was that young, like Jaws.
That hasn't left you with a lifelong trauma.
Yeah, exactly. That's not. I don't have a phobia of sharks. That's really obvious. The Shining. Maybe that wasn't the best year to show me The Shining. I was like, but they always instilled with me. Everything is special effects and it's all make believe, and they taught me to appreciate the cinematography and the lighting and the score, especially with a lot of films. So anything you're giving me credit for, I'm gonna hand it right back over to my folks. So
yeah. And I remember you matched me in that area of just being obsessed with movie soundtracks when we were younger. That tended to be what I listened to, and then again, you and I met, and that's what you were listening to too. So it was another thing for us to kind of connect over movie soundtracks.
Yeah, and this isn't a movie soundtrack necessarily, but you still have me addicted to Art of Noise.
Oh yeah, I love Art of Noise.
But yeah, no, I still try to collect movie soundtracks. Obviously, I do it mostly digital now, and I have them on my computer to listen to. But that's never really gone away. I mean, some of those composers, some of the work just sticks with you, and it's sometimes it's the best thing in the film.
True. Yeah, that was, and I've made the comment on here before about Gladiator winning the Oscar the year that it won. And it's to me, it's not a great movie. It's a good movie. Didn't deserve the Oscar. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just not a great movie. But damn, is it a great score?
Yeah, I'll agree with you. Is that one's Zimmer, right? That's a Hans Zimmer.
I believe so. Yeah,
I believe so. But no, I agree with you. That it was an okay film. Joaquin Phoenix is solid.
Which is funny because when I left the film, my first thought was I need to see something else that Phoenix is in, because I don't know if I hated him or if I hated the character.
Yeah, the character.
Yeah, and then I saw him in something else and was like, okay, yeah, it's the character that I hate.
Yeah, I mean, he did a really good job playing a psychotic Roman emperor. So kudos to that. But the Hans Zimmer's everything he does is pretty much amazing. So Inception, that's another cool soundtrack. Obviously, the Dark Knight movies.
Yeah, he's amazing. Well, let's turn our focus to Carter Burwell instead.
Carter Burwell, he's fantastic.
Yeah, and let's talk about this week's movie, which is Blood Simple from 1984, written and directed by Joel and Ethan Coen. This is the first Coen Brothers movie. Starring John Getz, Frances McDormand, Dan Hedaya, M. Emmett Walsh, and Sam Art Williams.
What I know about is Texas. Down here, you're on your own.
Hello.
Having a good time?
Hey, who's it?
Your husband.
I got a job for you. It's not strictly legal.
You want me to kill him?
Ray, let's get out of here.
What do you want to do?
What do you want to do?
What's funny is if it's not you she's sleeping with, it's someone else. What's really going to be funny is when she gives you that look and says,
I don't know what you're talking about.
You look stupid now.
And I think I told you because you and I had been going back and forth about getting you on the show for a while, and then just out of the blue, you finally picked this one. And ironically, the day that you picked it, I had that morning been considering that there hadn't been any Coen Brothers movies picked for the podcast yet. So your timing was just like perfect.
Awesome. I like it when everything comes together.
Which is not what this movie is about.
No, nothing comes together right in this movie.
So how do you describe this movie to someone who hasn't seen it? Because I know a lot of people out there who know the Coen Brothers, but they know them through, The Big Lebowski or Fargo or those kinds of things, True Grit. Blood Simple seems to be one of their overlooked movies, especially because it was their first one. So how do you describe this? How do you sell this to someone who hasn't seen it?
The way that I've described this one is always it's a modern film noir. It is like it's got a plot that's like a cup of noodles. Once you start trailing down one road, it splits off into 3 other roads. And the pacing on it is incredibly tense. There's really, like you said, there's really only like 4 or 5 characters in the whole movie. And if you like a good suspense film, if you like something that's just short and sweet and wicked, I mean, this is right up there with some of the best film noir out there, in my opinion.
No, I totally agree with you. So for those who don't know the movie, the basic plot is Frances McDormand plays a character who is wanting to leave her husband, and her husband, played by Dan Hedaya, has hired a private detective played by Emmett Walsh to keep tabs on his wife, and through a series of unexpected events, the husband ends up dead, and the boyfriend is trying to cover it up because he thinks Frances McDormand's character was responsible. And that's about the best plot synopsis I can give.
Without giving away the entire film, yeah, that's solid though. That was good. It's Frances McDormand's first film, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Okay,
and of course,
I want to say for that.
And of course, she goes on to marry one of the Coens, so it's kind of where they met as well.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah, she was originally not. Holly Hunter was up for the role, and felt like she blew the audition, and Frances McDormand was her roommate at the time, so she recommended Frances go audition for it. Hunter ends up providing the voice on the phone later on in the film, but,
right?
Didn't obviously get the lead role. But yeah, so this is Frances McDormand's film debut,
and they gave Holly Hunter Raising Arizona, so
yes, you can't feel too bad for her.
Yeah. But yeah, I didn't know she was married to one of them. I've learned something today.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, I did not know that.
Oh yeah. Okay. All right. So
is that a common knowledge thing that I just blew?
I thought so, but I could be wrong. I thought it was, but then again, I mean, that's part of why she. Well, I was going to say that's part of why she is, in all of their films. But the truth is, she's in all of their films just because she's, talented. But yeah, she's married to Joel Coen since April '84.
Wow. Okay. All right. Well, she did much better in her opening debut than Kate Capshaw.
All right. So, you've got a huge film experience, as I said. So why out of all of the movies is this the one you picked for our conversation?
Because there's so many people that I, talk to in at work or out at parties and talking with groups that don't even know this movie exists. I think they think that the Coens just did Fargo, and that was like their big, that was their big film. That was what did it. And I always kind of look stunned because I'm like, no, their first film was Blood Simple, and they're like, Blood Simple, what is that? And I'm like, it's one of their greatest films, in my opinion. It's fantastic. And, without it, that might not have opened up the door to all the other amazing Coen Brothers films that we've got. So, just the sheer number of people that don't know this movie exists.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's a hot take or a cold take or what, but I can't think of a more perfect product from first-time directors than this. I mean, this movie is pretty damn close to perfect in the way that it's laid out, the way that it's shot, the way that they build tension. It's a phenomenal movie, period. But for it to be a first movie from a pair of filmmakers is amazing.
Everything clicks. The soundtrack is amazing. They got relatively unknown actors, and everything works. It's like I'm trying to think of something similar, maybe like Reservoir Dogs, maybe something where it's like their first film out was just a home run. So yeah, I would agree with that absolutely.
So what is your history with this one? Is this one your parents introduced you to, or something you discovered later on?
No. This is one that they were like, hey, you like, because at the time I was big into mysteries and Sherlock Holmes and, the Maltese Falcon, all that kind of stuff. And they were like, hey, you want to see one that's really, really good? There's this Blood Simple film. And I want to say I saw it like not soon after its release, like maybe 85, 86. So I was, young at the time. Probably, again, shouldn't have seen something like this. But but it just stuck with me. I was like, the visuals, the plot, everything was just fantastic. And it's one that as soon as I, got out on my own, I had to track a copy down of. So
yeah, the music, I kind of used that as our lead-in, but the piano medley is the foundation of the score is so hauntingly beautiful. Like I found myself when I finished watching this yesterday, I left the Blu-ray in because the menu music was part of the score, and it was just nice to listen to that play over and over again.
Yeah. And they do something in this that's very, I mentioned Tarantino a minute ago. It's very hard for me to listen to the Four Tops, It's the Same Old Song, without thinking Blood Simple.
Yeah, the two are definitely connected.
They have such a great use of songs in this one that it just, it just clicks.
Yeah, absolutely. So critically, this film did really well. Great opening start. It sits at 94% at Rotten Tomatoes. It sits at 81% on Metacritic, which came around a little later. So I guess that's people later to the party not appreciating it as much.
Catching up, yeah.
Yeah, I brought in the big guns for our critical eye here. On the positive side, I always try to use Roger Ebert, and his review of this is phenomenal. Sure. And I'll just go ahead and warn you on the negative side. I managed to find the full review by Pauline Kael.
Oh, no.
So
okay, all
right. So Roger Ebert says a lot has been written about the visual style of Blood Simple, but I think the appeal of the movie is more elementary. It keys into 3 common nightmares. 1, you clean and clean, but there's still blood all over the place. 2, you have committed a murder, but you are not sure how or why. 3, you have forgotten a small detail that will eventually get you into a lot of trouble. Blood Simple mixes those fears and guilts into an incredibly complicated plot with amazingly gory consequences. It tells a story in which every individual detail seems to make sense, and every individual choice seems logical, but the choices and details form a bewildering labyrinth in which there are times when even the murderers themselves don't know who they are.
Wow, that is spot on accurate. But I very rarely disagree with Roger Ebert or did, so yeah, sounds good so far.
Okay, all right, so nothing to say really about that one. I thought he captured it really well.
He did.
But he talks about, a lot has been written about the visual style, and he then kind of moves past the visual style. All right, so here's Pauline Kael providing the negative review. Just hold on.
All right, I'm holding.
Blood Simple has no sense of what we normally think of as reality and has no connections with experience. It's not a great exercise in style either. It derived from pop sources from movies such as Diabolique and grubby B pictures and hard-boiled steamy fiction such as that as James M. Cain. It's so derivative that it isn't a thriller. It's a crude, ghoulish comedy on thriller themes. The director, Joel Coen, who wrote the screenplay with his brother Ethan, who was the producer, is inventive and amusing when it comes to highly composed camera setups or burying someone alive, but he doesn't seem to know what to do with the actors. They give their words too much deliberation and weight, and they always look primed for the camera, so they come across as amateurs.
I disagree with everything said just then. Every word is wrong. Wow. Okay. That is a harsh review.
Yeah. She tended to.
I don't even know where to begin. Yeah.
I guess work our way backwards. Do you feel like the actors come across as amateurs, that they give their words too much deliberation and weight?
I don't think they come across as amateurs so much as they come across as regular people, which is, I guess, what the idea going into it is they don't commit the perfect murders at all. They're sloppy. It's like watching a bad episode of Forensics Files with these people. They make all these horrible mistakes. They say the wrong things. They do the wrong things. But I guess some of that is the appeal to me over something like Diabolique, where everything does feel a little too scripted. And I love that movie, but it all seems like it ties up a little too nicely. Does that make any sense?
Yeah.
And this one, it just feels like you don't know what they're going to do because they don't know what they're going to do.
Yeah. I disagree with her. You know, there's a key scene after Ray, the boyfriend here, he's found the dead body of the husband, and I guess we'll get into. I don't want to go through the movie narratively, so we're going to jump around. But he finds the dead body, and he decides to take care of it because he thinks Abby has murdered this character. Right. And then after this rough night of dealing with the body, he comes home and he has this conversation with Abby, where it's almost two different conversations going on because neither one of them knows what the other one is talking about.
Right. Yeah, he thinks she's a murderer, and she's just asking him, like, did you go get in a fight?
Right.
There's this disconnect there, but I thought it was incredibly well done, because a lot of the times, you know, I don't know how I would communicate something like that. So the fact that, you know, John Getz, you know, looks totally confused, and he's chuckling at one point, just lighting a cigarette, and just keeps saying, you know, it's going to be all right. Yeah, that's totally believable to me.
Yeah, no, and that's, to me, that's the beauty. I didn't feel like the characters were being deliberate in what they were saying, or the actors were being deliberate in what they were saying. I felt like they were playing two different scenes because that's what their characters would have been doing. Because after all of that, he's not going to come home and say, all right, so I know you killed him and all that. He's still he's in shock.
Well, the whole evening for him is just not a good evening. It's a great way to ruin a Sunday. You know, there's not a line of dialogue in that scene with him finding the body and, you know, everything that comes from that. But again, he cleans that crime scene up in the most ridiculous way possible, and it's horribly believable. It's like, what have I got on me? I've got a windbreaker. Well, I guess I'm going to mop up blood with this windbreaker.
Right, and that feels like one of those moments where the audience nowadays would be like, oh, well, he's obviously never seen an episode of, you know, as you said, Forensic Files, using your reference there. But that feels logical of what a character in that situation would do. We're not going to stop and be like, oh, well, how would they handle this on Forensic File? We're going to, you know, oh, I've got to clean this up so my girlfriend doesn't get in trouble. Yeah, what's the first thing? And what I love about the detail you just mentioned, the windbreaker, is that in his stunned scene later on with Abby, he asks that question.
Oh, yeah, where's my windbreaker?
Where's my windbreaker? Not thinking that he cleaned up blood with it and threw it in an incinerator.
Yeah, he has no idea. He's completely in shock. And I guess to this, you know, to Pauline, it seemed amateurish, but to me, it seems highly believable.
Yeah, no, and let's talk about the disposing of the body scene. Because he finds the body, as you said, he cleans up the blood with his windbreaker and then finally gets smart and gets a towel and is trying to do that. He drags the body out to his car. He drives past the incinerator, but instead of like putting the body in the incinerator, he puts just his windbreaker and the towel in there. He drives out to a field, realizes that the character's not dead.
Yeah.
Has to contend with that, and then buries him alive.
That's one of my favorite moments, when he pulls off the road and just starts running. And he runs, about 50 feet, and then turns around, and he looks like, I have no idea what to do now.
Right, because what are you going to do? You have a dead body in the back seat that's not dead, but if you take him to the hospital or the police, you're incriminated in trying to do something, even though you technically didn't do anything.
And you've sailed your girlfriend up the river. Or at least in his mind, yeah.
And that scene felt so reminiscent of what the Coen Brothers would do later on in Fargo and in Burn After Reading, where you have a guy in a situation that he just doesn't understand, and he's trying to do the best that he can.
Yeah, absolutely. I think they're really solid at that. Even No Country for Old Men, you know, what Josh Brolin's character is he's completely outmatched. Yeah. He's just kind of going with the motions in that one, like, oh, okay, now what do I do? And that's totally what John Getz has got, that whole, okay, I don't know what I'm doing now.
It even reminded me, taking it beyond the Coens, it even reminds me of those first couple episodes of Breaking Bad, where Walt and Jesse are having to take care of bodies or
the bathtub scene. Is that where you're
the bathtub scene or any of the basement scenes with the other guy who, they've got to kill. And again, normal guy in a situation that he doesn't know what to do, because if you let him free, you're dead. But if you don't let him free, he's going to die or you're going to have to kill him. And it's like, it felt exactly the same. It felt like that was building on the foundation of what the Coen brothers did here.
Yeah, no, I hadn't thought of the Breaking Bad, but that's absolutely perfect. And another thing you said a minute ago, I like the idea that he stares at that incinerator after he cleans up. You can see him sitting there watching it, and then he gets in his car and you're like, okay, he's going to go burn the body. But he just throws the coat in. And it's like, okay, what are you doing?
And again, it's because we can armchair quarterback as much as we want from the safety of our chair, but we're not in the situation. And this is a man in shock. And I think they convey that excellently throughout, essentially the rest of the movie.
Yeah. And John Getz, I think, is a criminally ignored actor, to be really honest, because he really didn't do much after this, did he?
No, I mean, he has a pretty busy filmography. I looked him up because I was like, I know I've seen that face, and all I really knew him from was this. I mean, he's stayed working, but he's, what's the term, working actor?
Yeah. Well, the only two big movies I could think of with him in it was this and Cronenberg's The Fly.
Yeah. Well, he's done a lot of TV. He's done Bosch, which was a streaming series on Amazon. Okay. A couple episodes of Better Call Saul, speaking of Breaking Bad.
There's something I haven't seen is Better Call Saul, so
it's really good.
I've heard, but now you're telling me like John Getz is on it, and I'm gonna have to net
just a couple of episodes of it, though. He's not a key part, but
still, that he's great. He really is, especially in this.
I mean, he easily has 150 credits to his name if you look at his filmography. I mean, he's definitely stayed working. He just hasn't been a leading man. Okay. All right. So this was really his big leading man kind of role then, I guess. Yeah, pretty much. All right. Well, let's change gears so we make sure we get another conversation in here. And that is what I think is the best performance of the film. You're going to say M. Emmett Walsh. Absolutely. Hands down, M. Emmett Walsh. Because he's so likable. He's so likable, but at the same time, he's such a scuzz. I don't know that I would use the term likable. He's friendly. He's smiling. He's always laughing. I mean, he's scum, but I don't know. He had like a kind of a personable kind of charm to him, a Texas charm to him, I guess, maybe. Well, he has the opening lines of the movie, which I for some reason in the past few months, that's something I've been taking note of, is where are the opening lines of the movie coming from? And he has that monologue about how, the world is full of complainers. In fact, nothing comes with a guarantee. But the point that I think you really get any glimpse into his characterization is he hands the pictures he's taken of Abby and Ray together to her husband and just kind of says with a little chuckle, I know where you can get those framed. Yeah. And it's like, wow, you're an asshole. It was. There was just something funny about him. He's got that little like topless light in his car that he's playing with. And he's telling that story about the guy with two broken hands. And, it could also be because just about every scene you see him with, he's with Dan Hedaya, who is the most intense guy almost in moviedom in that film. Like, every scene Dan Hedaya's in, he just kind of looks like the scariest ex-husband you'd ever want to meet. Just stares a lot of time, or whispers. And I don't know, M. Emmett Walsh in every scene he's in is just kind of laughing or having a good time with him, poking fun at him. And, I mean, they're both terrible people, but... Yeah, and Dan Hedaya, just a quick side note, it really interests me because this is the kind of character I'm used to seeing him play. But then every once in a while you get a performance like he was the dad in Clueless, and I totally forgot that until a podcast I listened to was talking about Clueless a couple of weeks ago, and it was like, oh yeah, and he was a good guy in that. He was in the First Wives Club. See, I've not seen that movie. With Diane Keaton, yeah. It's weird. Sometimes you'll see Dan Hedaya pop up in something and be like, oh, he's not really intense in this. Like, he's the bad guy in Commando. Yeah, now that I knew. Yeah, he's the bad guy in Commando. I think he's in Alien 4. Yes.
the one that nobody likes to talk about.
I mean, I saw it. It was a thing that I saw once, but yeah, no, it's not good. But Dan Hedaya is in it.
Yeah,
it's.
But you're right. I mean, he is really intense, and to be matched on screen, you're right. Most of his scenes are with M. Emmett Walsh, who we just had a movie on the podcast a couple of weeks ago. M. Emmett Walsh shows up in Fletch in one tiny little scene.
Oh yeah, he does.
But I think he's best known, of course, for Blade Runner, but then this as well.
You know what other movie he shows up in that he's really hilarious in is The Jerk.
That movie came up earlier today, and I didn't even think about that. He's in The Jerk.
He's the guy, the guy who runs the convenience store where they're trying to kill him, and he hates these cans. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And Emmett Walsh is in that. Yeah.
It's been so long since I've seen The Jerk. Obviously, I need to revisit that. Yeah, I mean, he's amazing in this from his first moments to he gets essentially the closing line of the film, and. Yes. I disagree about liking him. I like to hate him. I like what a scumbag he is. I don't particularly like him.
I don't like him so much as he comes across as likable. In a film that's full of really intense people, he's the only one making jokes. He's the only one laughing about stuff. There's only 4 characters in the film, and he's the worst of them, but he's also, I don't know, the friendliest.
Yeah, okay, I can go with that. He definitely is.
I mean,
is friendly.
Clearly, in that one scene with Dan Hedaya, I don't know how much of this movie we want to give away.
Oh, you can go ahead. Yeah.
In the scene where he just shoots Dan Hedaya, man, he goes from telling a joke to just cold, and he's waving his hat, blowing the gunpowder fumes out of his face, and then what's that line he's got? He's like, "Now who's stupid looking?"
Yeah, who looks stupid now?
Yeah. Whoa, he got cold. He went from telling jokes and talking about fishing to just. No, I trust you. Blam. And it comes out of nowhere.
Yeah. But the irony of that, who looks stupid now, is he's saying that as he's making what is an essential blunder for his character, which is the lighter.
Yes. Yeah, you can see him make the mistakes. And it's such again, it goes back to, you can see the wheels turn in that character when he makes that decision, like, oh, there's the safe. He's got to have a lot of money in that safe because he keeps talking about all the money he's got. I'm just going to do this. But then when it happens, it's still like, whoa, okay, all right. Well.
Yeah. Well, I think it's, we don't get an explanation as to why, because he's hired to kill Abby and Ray.
Yeah.
And we don't ever get an explanation as to why he chose specifically not to kill them, but then to come back and kill his client.
I mean, the only thing that I ever figured watching that was he clearly, when he does go into the house at the towards the beginning of the film, when he takes those pictures, when he goes around, he clearly gets spooked, creaking around the house with his cowboy boots on. And I think at that decision, he made the decision, obviously, I'm just going to try to fool this other guy rather than try to do this. I guess it's easier to kill one guy sitting in his bar than it is 2 people sleeping in a bed. I don't know.
Well, and I think part of it, the only justification I can come up with is Ray and Abby are liked. We can assume, even though we don't really see much beyond the scope of this story, we can assume that they have friends beyond the scope of this story. Whereas Marty, maybe not so much.
No, he's the scariest guy. You can tell because the people that he employs don't like him. The bar patrons, he's creepy with them. He's scared. He's, the bartender's having to make excuses for him. He's just a very unlikable character. And Dan Hedaya plays him to the hilt as unlikable.
Yeah, and while since you mentioned it, we do need to take a moment to recognize Maurice, who is probably the worst character in the movie as far as just you feel bad for the guy because he's a nice guy who's just trying to do his thing. And
I take it back. He's the friendliest guy in the film, not Emmett Walsh.
He has nothing to do with the story other than he's just on the outskirt edges because he knows these people, and yet his life is about to get all sorts of screwed up as well.
And he is, honestly, he gets the crown for most clueless, uninformed guy in this film. And that is a lofty mountain in this film to climb up to. Because the scenes where he's in, he's talking to somebody who doesn't know what he's talking about, and he has no idea what he's talking about.
Yes.
It's very confusing. It's like, oh my God, they don't know what you're saying. You think you know what you're saying is right, but the guy's not off fishing. Nobody stole the money. I didn't do it.
And I thought it was a really interesting choice to cast Sam Art Williams in that role, because there is nothing to that role that specifically says the character has to be black, other than maybe his choice of music.
Yeah.
And, you know, casting a black man in that part is a really interesting dynamic because, one, when the detective first gives the pictures to Marty, the golden lining or the silver lining he's trying to give Marty is, you thought he was a colored man.
Yeah.
And then Maurice is the one that essentially Marty is laying the foundation that Maurice stole the $10,000 that he's using to pay the detective. That's how he's covering his tracks with the money, is he leaves a message on Maurice's machine saying, this money is missing. You better come here and talk to me about it.
Yeah. No, Maurice is, he's definitely the most likable guy, and he's definitely the most out of the loop on everything. Except for the fact that his boss is a jackass. He's got that part down to a science. I mean, you know, we learn more about Dan Hedaya, about Marty through Maurice almost than we do about, you know, through his wife. I love when he tells a joke where he's talking about how, you know, all these alcoholics came in here and wanted to know if they could get a discount. And I look over and Marty's thinking the idea through like, that's not so bad. Okay, that's the kind of guy this guy is. All right.
Yeah, I maybe I need to take it back about what a scum M. Emmett Walsh's character is, because Marty really is the scum of the earth.
Marty is terrible. You know, even when Ray's got him out in the field, and it's like, oh, yeah, he thinks about hitting him with the shovel at first, and he doesn't do it, and I'm like, oh, this guy's just so detestable that you're not even thinking about taking him to the hospital now. You just want to get rid of him.
Oh yeah.
And he's doing nothing to like give you any you know, validation to save him. What's the first thing he does? He pulls the gun out of his pocket.
Right.
I mean,
you put the gun in his pocket. Now he's not dead, and the first thing he does, rather than calling out for help, is pull the gun on you. Yeah, absolutely.
He can't talk, but you could at least gesticulate. You could like look like you're pleading. You could look sad. No, he goes right for that handgun.
That's a good point.
You know, if his finger hadn't already been busted, man, that might have been a really interesting scene. Wow.
Hello, tipsters. This is Melissa Morgan. I'm the host of Just the Tipsters True Crime Podcast, because people are awful and they kill each other. Tipsters, this is Melissa Morgan, the host of Just the Tipsters True Crime Podcast. Have you ever wanted to kill anyone? Hey, tipsters. My name's Melissa Morgan, and I'm the host of Just the Tipsters True Crime Podcast, America's favorite true crime podcast. You can find us on Apple Podcast. I don't know where you can find us. How about that? Just find us and listen, and you'll really like it. Is that okay?
Just the Tipsters with Melissa Morgan is actually available on iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and wherever you get your podcasts. Subscribe, rate, review. You'll be glad you did.
So the handgun is established in like the first non-voiceover line of the movie. So the first, you know, as we said, the first line of the movie is narration by M. Emmett Walsh, but then it's really quickly established in that first brilliant scene, the car ride with Ray and Abby in it, that Marty gave her this pearl-handled .38 for their first anniversary.
Yeah.
So you really have a Chekhov's gun situation set up with that gun, that it is mentioned almost first thing in the film. And then the movie does keep coming back to it. You have another Chekhov's gun with, as I said, the lighter. You know, the first scene with Marty and the detective, he pulls out that lighter, and there's not enough focus on it to make you feel like it's important, but there's enough focus on it that when it's a big deal later on. You remember it.
Yeah. They just kind of flash to it for a scene. Like he lights his cigarette with it. He slaps it down hard, and then you're like, okay, cool lighter.
Yeah.
Oh.
And then when you see it under the fish later on, you're like, oh, that's why they made a deal out of that.
Yeah.
So I just found it interesting that there's not one, but there's two Chekhov's guns here.
That is interesting. Yeah. Huh. It's that good of a movie. They can do that.
Yeah. Well, and that opening, the visuals of that opening car ride, which was filmed in a garage, using practical old school visual effects.
Yeah, like here's another light, here's the headlights of another car coming. Yeah.
Right. Which is, essentially like a flashlight.
Yeah.
I mean, it is so beautiful and setting the tone for the scene and setting the tone for the movie. Just throughout the whole film, the use of light and shadow is so glorious, but it all starts with that opening car ride scene, which I just absolutely love. And it's single take, so it lets the actors, control the flow of the action. It's just, as I said, this is a fantastic first film. This is a fantastic film, period. But for it to be a first film, and for that to be the first scene of their first film, is just really incredible what the Coen Brothers do.
And it's very noir. All the lighting in this is very noir. Another scene that I love with the lighting is when he goes to Marty's office, and he doesn't know Marty's been shot. He takes a few steps into this really dark room, and he kicks that gun, and the gun goes off. He grabs hold of the side of the table or the chair there, and the lighting in that scene is just terrifying because you don't know what he's going to find. You don't know what's happened. I mean, you know what's happened, but you don't know what he's looking at until a few minutes later.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I love the way that they reveal. I mean, what's funny is we've already seen that Marty's dead. We've already seen him get shot, but the way they reveal it to us through Ray is really an interesting approach as well.
Yeah, because he just shows up looking for, I'm going to go down there and get my money. I don't care if he wants to start something. And instead, he goes into a dark room and kicks a handgun that goes off.
One of the other scenes I noted light and shadow in is when Abby is staying the night at his place. Not their first night together in the motel, but staying at his place. And he went and met with Marty, and Marty kind of got in his head and said, she'll fool around on you too. And he comes back and says, do you want the bed or the couch? Making it very obvious right from the start that Marty got in his head.
Yeah, he did.
And when they're in those separate rooms and the camera kind of cuts between her on the couch and him in the bed and Marty outside his bar, and just the way the light and shadow captures all three of them is just beautiful.
Well, and you've also hit on their fantastic dialogue as well, because half their confusion later on stems from that one conversation he has with Marty, where Marty's like, she's going to get that voice and be like, I don't know what you're talking about, Ray. And then she says that to him. The next 45 minutes into the movie, she says that when he's like, he just thinks he's cleaned up a murder. And she goes to her, and she's like, I don't know what you're talking about, Ray. And he just kind of chuckles. And it's like, oh, now this conversation is dead. Now they're not going to go forward with this. Whereas, in any other normal situation, they might be like, hey, this is what happened. He ended it there because Marty had put that in his head.
Yeah, and he mentions that she'll do funny on you, and she uses that word several times. That always seems to trigger something from Ray as well, where she says, I ain't trying to be funny, or I ain't doing something funny.
Yeah, no, I think that scene early on, I think you hit the nail on the head there. That scene with Marty gets in his head for the entire rest of the film.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's just, to me, going back to the negative review, I just disagree. I think the performances are all really superb and important in laying the foundation for each subsequent scene. I totally disagree with that Pauline Kael review.
Yeah,
go figure.
Yeah. I mean, I think I don't even know if she saw the same movie, to be perfectly honest. If you read Roger Ebert's again and then read hers again, it seems like they went to see two different films.
Yeah.
And the entire end of the movie is in shadow.
Yes. And I was going to say, before we end, because we're running on an hour, and we still got our little closing games here, but let's talk about the end of the movie.
My goodness.
The Ray coming to her apartment, where in the time of this frame of this movie has she had time to get her own place? But it's not,
it doesn't matter.
Well, and it's not like she has a ton of stuff there, so it's easy to believe that yes, she's yeah. But his insistence on keeping the light off because he knows somebody's out there.
Yeah, he's figured it out enough to where he knows it's not her, but he doesn't say anything. He's just like, no, don't turn the lights off.
Yeah, and it's this continued thing that like the second half of the movie continues to be scenes and conversations about not knowing. Like that's the key element of the film is not knowing. If one of them had just sat down and said, "Here's what's going on," it would have been a very different movie. But that's not realistic.
No, it's not. It's not. And like you say, from all the previous conversations and scenes, he's not going to say anything, and she's going to stay completely clueless.
Yeah. So she stays completely clueless, leaves the light on, and that costs Ray his life.
Oof, in a bad way too.
Yeah.
The end of this movie is brutal.
Yeah, which I had one of the trivia pieces I read for this. She has that scene where Marty visits her in her apartment, and you're like, wait, Marty's dead and buried. How on earth did he come back? And it's revealed to be a dream.
It's a creepy scene too.
Yes, it is. And in that scene, apparently there's broken glass on the floor as kind of foreshadowing to what's going to happen to Ray. I've never caught it.
I'd have to go back and watch. Huh.
Yeah.
Because the first time I saw that, I was like, oh my God, did that guy really not die again?
Yeah.
Did he somehow get out of that? And then when he, obviously it's a dream, I was like, wow, that's a creepy use of dream.
What's really interesting is everything he says in that dream sequence are Ray's lines of dialogue.
Yes, you left your weapon behind. Yeah.
He's saying Ray's lines, but it's Marty as the ghost delivering them in her dream.
Yeah, it's very surreal.
So anyway, Ray gets killed, and then you have this wonderful cat and mouse game between Abby and the detective.
Yeah, and boy, he gets hurt really bad. I have to point out the scene where he gets stabbed. I was showing that movie to a group of friends. I want to say 2 or 3 years ago, and the scene where she slams the windowsill on his hand and sticks a knife in it and twists it. Everybody in the room let out a noise of some kind, whether it was a scream or oh. And I remember the first time I watched it, I was like, I'm going to be sick. That is horrible. It just looks like the worst. Yeah, it's a word, and he's trying to pull his hand back in, and I'm like, don't do that. That's not good. And it's always killed me though that he punches through that drywall, which I understand, and he pulls a knife out. And if you watch the scene, he does not look at his hand. He just puts his hand immediately in his pocket.
Yes.
Like he knows.
Would you look at it?
But that's another one of those. Wow, that's a believable scene, which goes back to that horrible review where she's like, everybody looks amateurish. No, I would look at my hand. That's the first thing, that they tell you, don't look at it. And this guy, he pulls that knife out, and then the hand goes right in the pocket.
Yeah.
And he puts his hat back on.
Which apparently Emmett Walsh was opposed to doing, but was told to do it anyway. And they
hat back on?
Yeah. Have you not heard that story?
No, I haven't heard that story.
Okay, so apparently he didn't want to do it. He kept coming up with reasons why it was not in his character to do it. And one of the Coens said, will you just do it as a favor to me? And he responded, I'm doing this whole movie as a favor to you.
I love him putting the hat back on, though.
Oh, wait, me too.
It's very Texas. Does that make any sense? It feels very in character, like, okay, all right, let me get my hat back on. We got to get back in the game.
Yeah. So he puts his hat back on, and then he gets gunned down. And I want to ask you about this. Okay, so his last line, because she yells, I got you, or whatever. I'm not scared of you anymore. And his chuckle and laugh, and his line of, well, if I see him, I'll make sure he gets the message.
Yeah, and
that's where the film ends. Do you think she knew? Do you think she thought it was Marty again?
Yeah, I absolutely think she thought it was Marty. Absolutely, because remember, to that point, she doesn't even know Marty's dead. She thinks he's the one calling up the house and hanging up. Because at one point, Ray's.
Oh, that's right.
Ray's like, who's that? She's like, oh, it's just Marty calling up on me again. And Ray lets out another one of those little chuckles. And I think during that scene, he's like, okay, well, I'm going to go then because, you're playing this game with me. But yeah, no, I think she thought Marty was alive the entire time, which is what makes the end of that movie so absolutely perfect. That it's just such an odd scene. The very last thing you see in this movie is what the last thing Emmett Walsh sees, which is a drip coming off of the bottom of the sink.
What an odd choice.
Which is a really odd choice, and I don't know if that would be the last thing I would want to see. I mean, I don't mind it being the last thing that Emmett Walsh sees in that movie because he was so horrible, but
it kind of goes to Marty's line earlier about, him making a reference to him being a bug, that if I need to find you, I know what rock you're hiding under, and here he's dying under a sink like a cockroach.
Yeah, if you cut my head off, Yeah, because he talks about how they used to cut the heads off of bad messengers and stuff.
Yeah.
I can always crawl around without it.
Yeah, oh God. Now, did you know that there's a remake of this film?
Oh, no, is there?
There is a Chinese remake that was done in 2009 called A Woman, a Gun, and a Noodle Shop.
All right.
It's not bad.
Is it good? Okay.
Yeah,
all right.
I mean, it's a foreign film. I mean, it is a Chinese culture film, so it is this film adapted into Chinese culture. It's not fantastic, but it's not bad.
Huh. Okay. No, I did not know that. Huh. Okay. I have to check that out then.
So you've learned two things today.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, I know, me and remakes, sometimes I just don't get it, but I could see them doing this one.
If it was an American filmmaker remaking it, I would have a problem with it, but I liked it for the fact that it was a cultural remake as well as a film remake.
Sure. No, I mean, I'm going to have to check it out now, just on the sheer basis that it's, Chinese Blood Simple. That doesn't sound all that bad, honestly.
All right, man. Yeah, anything else you want to highlight about Blood Simple before we move into the end credits here?
One interesting thing that I found out is this came out on Criterion.
Yes.
It's actually, they say it's like the director's final version. And how most directors will add stuff to the film. The Coens actually reduced the running time on this.
Yes. Yeah, they tightened it up.
It was a little jarring because a lot of the dialogue that I remembered from watching it is gone. So, like, there's a scene where Dan Hedaya is getting out of the detective's Volkswagen, and he's telling him there's an incinerator behind my place. Make sure, you get rid of the bodies. And he leaves. And I remember in the version I saw, growing up and for years, the detective, waits till he takes a few steps and he says, "My God, you are disgusting." And scenes like that are gone. And I was just surprised because most of the time when you get a Criterion on, you get a director's cut. They want to add all these scenes. It's got 27 minutes of new footage. My Criterion Silence of the Lambs, I think they added like half an hour to it. But it had been a while since I had seen one where they actually tightened the film up. So I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah, we had an early one, and I'm trying to remember what movie it was that I did for the podcast, where the director basically said the theatrical cut is my preferred cut. The studio wanted me to do a director's cut, but this is the version I prefer. And I don't remember which movie it was, but so because I do try to take that into account when I'm watching these movies. I did not watch the director's cut for this. I watched the one that I had on Blu-ray. So.
Oh, gotcha. Well, the only other one I've got on this, is on VHS. So. Yeah, I still have
a VCR?
I do. From my Blockbuster time when we switched to, this is going to date me for everybody, but when we switched over from VHS to DVDs, because that was a new thing, VHS tapes, they were like, oh, we're getting rid of them for nickels. Mm-hmm. So I grabbed literally every movie that I could get my hands on. I bought like a wall of movies, like 100 movies for like, I don't know, it was like $20. And I've slowly been replacing them. But I still have, like, I don't know, 40, 50 VHS tapes still of ones that are either like Blood Simple, where I found out, oh, hey, look what they did with that. Well, don't ever get rid of this. I've got, like the original Star Wars cuts, stuff like that, luckily I still have a VHS player that works. So
yeah, I do too. I don't have it connected, but I still have one that works. So I'm there with you.
I think we're the only two people I know alive that still have a VHS player. Maybe Maybe there's some listeners that still do. We can hope that it's not just the two of us. I get looks at work sometimes. I'll be like, yeah, I just watched this on tape. And they're like, you mean DVD? And I'm like, no, literally on tape. That was
All right, man. First up, we've got The Algorithm Says. These are movies that were recommended by various algorithms because you liked Blood Simple. So this is kind of a lightning round of responses. What do you think about these movies? Do you like them? Do you not like them? Do you not see how they're connected? That sort of thing.
All right.
Midnight Run.
Oh, I like Midnight Run. Yeah, I can see it.
Yeah, I had to include it because we did an episode on it already, so I just had to throw that little plug in.
I like that. Okay.
All right. Angel Heart.
Angel Heart. Haven't seen that.
Yeah, and I had it pulled up to where I could reference it, and now I'm trying to see if I still have it up.
I have not seen that.
Yeah, well, that's what the lightning round often turns into. So yeah, it's Mickey Rourke, Robert De Niro, Lisa Bonet.
Oh, okay, all right. Yeah,
all right. The Pledge.
That's a Jack Nicholson one?
Yes.
I like The Pledge. I remember being a lot slower than Blood Simple. I guess they're kind of film noirs. Yeah. I can kind of they both in okay, yeah. I'd say I like The Pledge.
Okay.
It doesn't have the pacing of Blood Simple at all, but okay.
All right, Michael Clayton.
Yeah, okay.
I think the same thing about that one. I don't think the pacing is anywhere near as good.
Oh, what algorithm are they using? Like,
no idea.
Okay, Michael Clayton would be one I would put necessarily as Blood Simple like, but it's a good movie.
Yeah. Well, they're about to get really weird. They always start out relatively normal, and then they get really weird. So here we go with them starting to get really weird.
Okay.
Martha, Marcy, May, Marlene.
Oh, I don't know that one.
It's not that old a film. It's from 2011. It was Elizabeth Olsen's debut movie.
No. I would have got that completely wrong. If that had been a Jeopardy question, I'd have been like, what are movies from the 70s? Like, you hear that title and you think, there's going to be a bunch of guys driving around in big cars. And no, I didn't know that.
Okay.
All right.
The Dead Don't Die.
The zombie one they just did?
I think they're vampires, but yeah, it's Jim Jarmusch directed. Yeah, that they're. No, you're right. Zombies. Yes.
Yeah, so it's a Bruce Willis. Not Bruce Willis.
Bill Murray.
Bill Murray. Thank you.
Yes.
I don't see how that's related at all. One has Iggy Pop as a zombie. The other one's got Frances McDormand. I don't know. I don't know how they're getting that.
My guess is Blood Simple is considered by many to be like the best independent film that was ever made, and a lot of these are independent films.
Okay.
So maybe. All right, 3 more.
That was a good one. That one's throwing me more than the Olsen one because I haven't seen that one. So.
All right, The Assassination of Jesse James by the coward Robert Ford.
A fantastic movie. The pacing on it is a lot slower. No, I don't see the connection there at all, though. One's a Western that's got a fantastic Casey Affleck performance, but I'm not sure where they're getting Blood Simple from that. But for anybody who hasn't seen Outlaw Robert Ford, you should. It's good.
Okay, I have not seen it.
Solid. If you like Westerns, it's good. If you like historical biographies, it's good.
Okay. The Thing.
The Thing. I can't agree with them on The Thing. I love The Thing. It's one of my favorite movies of all time. I've got the board game. I've got a poster. They both have blood. I'm not sure how that worked in. No, I don't know. But you should watch The Thing. If you haven't seen The Thing, immediately find a copy of The Thing. Find it on whatever Hulu, Netflix. Find it. Watch it. You will love it. It's probably one of my top 10 favorite horror movies of all time.
All right, last one that's also going to break your brain. Scanners.
Oh my God. That's a little closer to Cronenberg's a little closer to the Coen Brothers than The Thing, I would think. I think just picking directors, it's directors whose last names end in C. That's Cronenberg, Carpenter, Coen. Scanners is a really, it's a fun movie. I mean, the special effects at the time, there's a guy whose head explodes. It's Michael Ironside. If you like Michael Ironside, this is the movie for you.
Oh, yeah.
I love Scanners, but I wouldn't think it's anything like Blood Simple, no. But again, if you've never seen Scanners, go to your Netflix or your Hulu and have that come on right after The Thing, and you'll have a really fun evening that you shouldn't eat spaghetti during.
All right, man. We always end with the pop quiz. 4 multiple choice questions based on the movie. All right, you ready?
I'm going to do my best, I hope.
All right. Number 1, the original video release of Blood Simple didn't have the rights to use Same Old Song by the Four Tops and had to replace it with what song instead? A, Joy to the World by Three Dog Night, B, Sweet Dreams by Patsy Cline, C, I'm a Believer by Neil Diamond, or D, Man of Constant Sorrow by the Soggy Bottom Boys?
It is C.
It is. I'm a Believer, which is a weird choice, and especially since that was one of your first statements about the movie, is how it's linked to that song, the fact that they had to change it for a while.
Yeah, and again, if you watch the Criterion one, they've switched the songs back out with, I guess, because I'm a Believer is not in it now.
Yeah, no, it was just for the first home video release. They've gotten it fixed since, so almost any DVD version out there is the proper version.
Yes.
Number 2, the title of the film is derived from a Dashiell Hammett novel, Red Harvest, describing the addled, fearful mindset of people after prolonged immersion in violent situations. Later, the Coens would make a loose adaptation of that same novel as what film? A, Miller's Crossing, B, Barton Fink, C, The Man Who Wasn't There, or D, Intolerable Cruelty?
Ooh, boy, I'm going to go with one of my favorites. I'm just going to guess it because it's my favorite Coen Brothers film, Miller's Crossing.
Yep, absolutely. I knew you would get that one. All right, number 3, as would become rather typical of the Coens, they used friends and collaborators in various roles in their movie, and Blood Simple was no different. Director Barry Sonnenfeld, who also appears in a voice role in Barton Fink, provide what vocalization for Blood Simple? A, the radio preacher as Ray drives with Marty's corpse. B, the radio announcer in the first scene. C, vomiting sounds when Marty sees the photos. Or D, cat calls as the stripper takes the stage.
Oh, boy. I'm going to have to take a guess on this one, too. Is he the preacher on the radio?
He is not. He is the vomiting sounds when Marty sees the photos.
Okay. All right.
All right, and last one. Speaking of collaborators, the Coens sold the movie by going door to door to potential investors and showing them a homemade trailer of Marty crawling down the road, bloodied and broken. The trailer is very similar to how it appears in the final film, except Marty is played by who? A, Steve Buscemi, B, Barry Sonnenfeld, C, Sam Raimi, or D, Bruce Campbell?
Wow. I didn't know it was played by somebody else for the trailer. We'll go with, because he's also a Coen Brothers person, we're going to go with Steve Buscemi.
No, it's Bruce Campbell, believe it or not.
Campbell? Holy cow. Okay. I mean, I love Bruce Campbell. I didn't know that he did that.
Yeah, I don't know that there's footage of it anywhere. I need to look it for that. But yeah, the original trailer that they made to try and get investors involved was just that shot of Marty going down the road to try and pique people's interest.
And when I met Bruce Campbell, I wish I had known that, because I would have been like, I loved you from the trailer to Blood Simple.
The one time I got to interview him, he didn't seem very interested in a lot of clowning around. So I don't know how he would have taken to that.
I mean, at the con, I guess at the con, he seemed super friendly, and he was almost playing Ash. So I don't know.
All right, man. I really appreciate it. This has been a great conversation for a great movie, and it's totally worth checking out if you haven't seen it. Let's not make it another decade before we chat again, okay?
No. I'd love to be back, unless it's hopefully this isn't your lowest rated show, or they're like, who's this guy? It's just some guy he knows. It's not a film critic of any kind, but I'd love to be back. That'd be fantastic.
We'll definitely do that. All right, man. Take care.
What do you say?
So that does it for this week, but you can keep the conversation going throughout the week on social media, share your thoughts about Blood Simple, or maybe tell me a movie you'd like to come on the show and talk about. You can find me at Talon Hess on Twitter, or the show at Have Not Seen This on Twitter, on Facebook, or at Have Not Seen This Podcast, or email me at havenotseenthis@gmail.com. And of course, don't forget to subscribe to the show so you don't miss any of our upcoming episodes, including next week's episode, which brings our first Disney animated film, along with an old woman you might describe as scary beyond all reason. This podcast is available through all major podcast sources. Positive ratings and reviews are always welcome, as is just sharing the podcast with a friend and spreading the love. And if you like World of Warcraft or other Blizzard Entertainment games, be sure to check out my other podcast, Citizens of Azeroth, a World of Warcraft podcast, also available through all major podcast sources. Special thanks to Chris Talent for our wonderful theme song, and deep thanks to Chris Ecklund for providing this week's conversation. Until next week, I'm Rafe Telsch, and this has been Have Not Seen This. Be kind to each other.